Buongiorno a tutti! Today I'm going to show you the easiest way to ask for help in Italian. So, exactly what to say in situations where you feel overwhelmed, like when someone speaks too fast, or when you need someone to repeat, or when you simply need some kind of help. Now, in my experience as a teacher, I've seen many students getting ready for the trip to Italy by learning useful Italian words and phrases, which is great, bravissimi. But when they are finally here, the first interactions might feel a bit overwhelming. And this is very common. So, for example, Italians seem to speak quite fast and you feel like you understand nothing. Or you catch a few words, but it doesn't feel to be enough, like it's enough to follow. So, at this point, what happens oftentimes, most times, is that many students either freeze or just switch to English, which is a pity. È un peccato after all the hard work you have been doing with your Italian. Now, the problem is that real life can feel pretty different from theory and even from your language practice. The first impact will always be a bit overwhelming, even if you studied and practice a lot. This is something normal and this is something that you should take into account. This is also something that language learning shares with learning other skills. For example, if you were training for a climb, there's a difference between training for a climb in the gym and then doing it on a real mountain. So your body and your mind need a moment to adjust and refocus. In this case, you don't need more complex sentences or more vocabulary. That's not what you're lacking. You just need a few simple expressions to help you buy time, understand more, and manage the conversation. So let me show you exactly what to say in these cases. Numero uno, if you need to ask to repeat, the simplest way to say that in Italian is this. Può ripetere? Può ripetere? This means can you repeat? Notice that we're using può, which is can you, but with formal use. So this is the courtesy form because you're going to use this phrase. You're very likely going to use this phrase with a total stranger, and we want to use the formal you as a way to show respect. So può ripetere is the phrase that I want you to learn and remember when you want to ask someone, can you repeat? Numero due. If you want to ask someone to speak more slowly, then the easiest and best way to say this in Italian is può parlare più lentamente? Può parlare più lentamente? Can you speak more slowly? Again, we're still using può because we're assuming you are talking to a stranger, so the formal you is a way to show respect. Frase numero 3. Getting the other person attention. In any case, you need someone else's attention. A good way to attract that to get that is using the equivalent of excuse me or pardon me in Italian, which is scusi. Scusi. This is great to use before the above example sentence I gave you. So before può ripetere o può parlare più lentamente. Per esempio, scusi, può ripetere? Or scusi, può parlare più lentamente? Because it's a way to make sure to get the other person's attention. And also it buys you some extra time while also sounding extra polite. Scusi can also be used for another way to ask someone to repeat, which is especially helpful when someone is like saying something more articulated and you're like, oh, what? Well, this is the polite, correct way to say what in Italian, which is come, scusi. So this literally means how, excuse me, how, pardon me, and it's way of saying I beg your pardon in Italian, and implicitly a way to ask someone to repeat. Come, scusi? And another phrase I want you to learn is how to say I don't understand correctly in Italian. Now, this is non ho capito. Non ho capito. Now, I want you to notice, because some students are confused by this, that we say I didn't understand. In English, you may say, sorry, I don't understand. So you use present tense. But in Italian, we say, sorry, scusi, I didn't understand. We use the past tense instead. So the most correct way to say that is non ho capito. And you can still use scusi before that. Now, by the way, I would love to hear from you. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where someone was speaking Italian and you got confused or overwhelmed? What would you do now? Let me know in the comments about your experience. Now, going back to our phrases, my point is that you should shift your mindset and not see these as failures, but as a necessary part of the process of becoming confident in using your Italian in real life. And even just simple sentences like the ones we are learning today, like non ho capito or può ripetere, they are already enough to keep the interaction going. Italians will immediately adapt and try to help you in most cases. And most importantly, you will have achieved your goal of actually using your Italian. And if you want to remember these expressions and practice them and also keep them handy for a quick review whenever you will need them in Italy, I prepared a PDF for you. You can immediately download it using the link in the description below this video, and as always, it's free. Now, something related that I want to point out, because I've seen a few students using these without realizing it was a mistake. In all these situations, and in general, in the situations where you need some help, a word that you don't want to use is this word, aiuto. Now, aiuto literally means help. So students sometimes are like, oh, aiuto. And they try to think, while they're trying to think of what to say, they just say aiuto. Well, in Italy, we only say aiuto when we need help in an emergency. For example, if someone faints and you need to call for help, aiuto, aiuto, that's how we would use it. Aiuto is a word that we associate to emergency and danger, so it would be totally out of place in most of these cases. If you want to generically ask for help, what you can say instead is this. Può aiutarmi? Può aiutarmi? Can you help me? So this uses the verb aiutare, which means to help, and it doesn't have that strong meaning of emergency that the word aiuto has in Italian. And you can use this in any situation where you may need help, like understanding that, finding out directions, or getting help for something you want to buy. Può aiutarmi is always correct. So please remember, you don't need perfect Italian. You just need the right phrases to help you keep going. And if you want to learn more Italian phrases for everyday conversations, don't forget to check out my dedicated playlist where you will find more helpful videos like this one. The link, as always, will be in the description. Ciao da Valentina.